We all know the exact feeling of hitting a mental wall. You fail a test for the third time, you check a bank account that's constantly overdrawn, and your brain sends an overwhelming, totally rational signal to just stop. This chart tracks a concept competitive long-distance runners call the pain barrier. It shows that the precise moment your body is in maximum agony and the desire to quit is absolute, is actually the exact moment you have to accelerate to win the race. Sir James Dyson currently oversees a global technology empire valued at over $20 billion. From the outside, his ascent looks like a sequence of sudden, brilliant epiphanies, the narrative of a lucky genius. The archival data reveals a much grimmer reality. To reach that status, Dyson navigated 5,126 consecutive failed prototypes, accumulated over $1 million in debt, and worked through years of severe clinical depression. His career serves as a masterclass in the long-distance runner's philosophy. He achieved global market dominance through a deliberate, systematic refusal to surrender when his personal pain barrier was at its absolute highest. When Dyson was 9, his father died of prostate cancer, plunging his family into immediate financial struggle. His education at Gresham School only continued because the headmaster provided a financial lifeline. Growing up without a father in that era was highly unusual, and the resulting isolation forced Dyson to find comfort in blazing unconventional trails. He learned early that his survival was entirely reliant upon his own agency. He carried that self-reliance into his first major venture, the ball barrow. To fund this radical reimagining of the wheelbarrow, he took a massive gamble, pledging his family home as collateral for a £24,000 loan. The ball barrow was a commercial success, but the victory was short-lived. His corporate investors outmaneuvered him, ultimately firing him from the company he founded. He walked away with nothing, losing the legal rights to his own inventions. This expulsion forged a permanent, uncompromising rule for his future. He resolved to never again relinquish equity, manufacturing oversight, or intellectual property control to outside investors. This period of loss provided the hyper-independent armor he needed for his true life's work. He entered his next decade of development with the understanding that he could survive being marginalized by the industry. In 1978, Dyson noticed his high-end Hoover vacuum cleaner lost its suction almost instantly. Upon dissecting it, he found that fine dust particles were clogging the microscopic pores of the paper bag, physically suffocating the motor's airflow. He looked for a solution in heavy industry. Sawmills used massive conical centrifuges to extract sawdust from the air via cyclonic separation. Dyson theorized he could scale this physics down, spinning dust out of the air at high velocities to eliminate the bag entirely. He spent the next 5 years in an unheated coach house in Gloucestershire. Working entirely alone and without formal engineering credentials, he began an exhaustive process of empirical iteration. He employed a strict scientific method, building a prototype, testing a single specific variable, like the diameter of the air intake, documenting the results, and immediately building the next version. Changing more than one variable at a time would have contaminated his data. This process pushed his family to the edge of ruin. He amassed over $1 million in debt, once again pledging his home as collateral. His wife, Deirdre, took on extra teaching jobs to make ends meet, while unselfishly signing endless bank guarantee forms that legally signed away their possessions. The compounding stress led to 2 prolonged bouts of clinical depression. Dyson described coming face to face with a darkness so heavy it was frequently unclear if he wanted to remain alive from one day to the next. He chose to treat his despair as the friction necessary for a breakthrough. Instead of quitting when the pain was most acute, he accelerated. On his 5,127th attempt, he finally secured a working, highly efficient bagless vacuum cleaner. Each of those 5,126 failures provided a specific aerodynamic data point. By the end, he had perfected a mechanism capable of generating centrifugal forces powerful enough to extract cigarette smoke from the air without a filter. Major manufacturers like Hoover and Electrolux immediately rejected the prototype. At the time, the replacement bag market was worth $500 million annually. Adopting Dyson's technology meant the industry would have to cannibalize its own most reliable profit center. In 1984, the American giant Amway reviewed his confidential designs under the guise of a partnership. Shortly after the deal collapsed, they released a bagless vacuum that was practically identical to Dyson's proprietary design. Refusing to be victimized again, Dyson initiated a grueling patent infringement lawsuit that dragged on for years. He chose to risk total bankruptcy rather than allow a multinational conglomerate to seize his intellectual labor. He found a lifeline in Japan. A firm there licensed his design and produced the G-Force, a bright pink, table-converting version of his Cyclone. It became an elite status symbol, selling via catalog for the equivalent of £2,000. The resulting licensing revenue allowed Dyson to sever his reliance on legacy manufacturers. He had survived corporate theft and industry rejection, proving that consumer demand for better engineering could eventually disrupt a century-old monopoly. Using the Japanese capital, he manufactured the vacuum himself. By 1995, his DC-01 was the best-selling vacuum in the UK. Because he steadfastly refused to take early venture capital, capturing 100% of the company's value, he eventually became the wealthiest person in the country. He now uses that wealth to reform the way we teach. He founded the Dyson Institute, where students earn degrees while working on engineering teams, a model that prioritizes hands-on failure over getting the answer right the first time. When you face your own mental walls, recognize them as data acquisition. Every failure reveals a precise boundary of what doesn't work, guiding you closer to the only variable that does. Success at this scale belongs to those who view emotional and financial friction as the signal to accelerate. It is the result of possessing the greatest capacity to absorb the pain, learn from the wreckage, and keep running.